Look, I won't get into too large of an introduction on today's episode of the Locked on Louisville podcast. We have a big-time guest. Let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked on Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked on Louisville podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Doesn't really need an introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. 4-year letterman for the Louisville men's basketball program in the early 2000s or 2010s, I should say, back-to-back Final Four appearances in 2012, 2013, cutting down the nets in Atlanta his senior season. Now the new director of men's basketball alumni relations and player development. He's none other than Cardinal beloved Peyton Siva. Peyton, what's going on, man? Welcome in.
Hey, how's it going, man? I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, of course. With Peyton in, we're going to talk about his new role. Pretty exciting stuff. We'll briefly dive into off-season workouts, talk a little bit about the team specifically, and a lot of people want to know about the Glory Day. So the final segment, we will get into that. So starting out, man, what's been going on? Obviously, new role. What have these past couple months been like for you?
They've been great. Just learning, adjusting, getting to know the guys, getting to understand my role on the team. But I will say it's been super fun, man. You know, Coach Kelsey and the rest of the staff have made it really easy for me to, they really integrated me into their system, into their style. And, it's all about the power of the unit. So it's been fun, man. The community's been, nothing but great. Real positive vibes going on. So I'm excited.
So kind of walk me through that conversation. Pat Kelsey comes to Louisville. A lot of Louisville fans don't really know who he is. He really embraces things fairly quickly. But what does that initial conversation look like to where you started to see that there was an opportunity for you on the staff? Was it sort of down the road after getting to meet Kelsey, or was it sort of, a quick conversation with him?
I've always kind of had my eye on this position. It's a position that kind of eases you into the coaching world and kind of see, what it's like. I had the gym up and going at Shoot 360, and I really wanted to be back involved with the university in some capacity. And I got a chance to really, talk to Coach Kelsey, talk to, Josh Hurd, and kind of just see how it was going to work out. And really fell in love with, who he was as a person. Got a chance to talk to him after his press conference, and, just his attention to detail, his energy, his charisma. I knew I wanted to go in there and, be a part of that staff. And, he welcomed me with open arms. And, I'm very fortunate to be on the staff now.
Director of Player Development and Alumni Relations. The latter part seems fairly, it seems fairly understood. Kelsey, in a recent interview, basically said that he felt like you were going to be a great advocate to sort of build that relationship between him and the alumni. But I'm really interested in the player development aspect, because in a vacuum, it makes sense, but it kind of serves as a blanket term. How do you envision your role, or what can you tell us about, what your day-to-day is going to be like, and what kind of that big picture is for that role that you're in?
It's kind of a tough role, especially for me, just because I'm not able to, in this type of role, get out on the court and really work with the guys hands-on, really give them any instruction on the court. But what I can do is I can watch film with them. I can talk to them off the court, just kind of guide them, kind of be that, mentor for them that, I played, 10 plus years professionally. I've been around the program a long time,
Right.
and, I can kind of help them in that sense. So that's kind of where my expertise comes in, and I'm able to help them with all of that. So it's a great role for me. It's something, like I said, it kind of like eases you in to the coaching world. And Yeah, man, it's been awesome.
Pat Kelsey, since joining Louisville, it's critical. You have to walk the walk. You have to win the games. But it seems like for this fan base, it's been yearning for someone who can also talk the talk. And what I mean by that is bringing, coach in. It felt like Louisville fans were looking for a coach that understood them and understood the passion and the expectations. In no way am I sliding the past coaching staff or anything like that, so please don't take it that way. But it felt like Louisville fans always just want to be understood. And Kelsey immediately, from the initial press conference to joining every radio show this side of the Mississippi, he's been a fairly unapologetic advocate for this program. What can you tell us about PK behind the scenes? Because we see the image of him in the press and on the videos and on the podcasts and radio shows, but what is he like behind the scenes?
Man, behind the scenes, man, he's just a really genuine person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a very loving person. He preaches love. Love your neighbor, love your teammate, and I can honestly say that it's refreshing to see. And for him, as you can see, when he's on the mic, when he's in front of the big stage, he's very charismatic. He's very high energy. He's very, the guy has quotes, unbelievable quotes. He's read more books than I've ever can imagine. But the thing is, with him, even behind the scenes, is he's the same way. He's a very loving person. He loves all his staff. He loves all of his players. He's still high energy, very charismatic, and he just has that, like I said, that positive vibe, those positive energies that, when he walks into the room, you can feel it. You gravitate to it, and that's why he's been successful in his career.
Last one before we kind of talk a little bit more about the basketball side of things, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Shoot 360 and everything you're doing in the community. Has it, with the way it's taken off, it's great. Has it sort of matched your expectations for what you envisioned this to be? Like, what was the end goal with your idea of creating this opportunity for the youth in the city?
It was exactly that. I've always loved working with the youth, and I love, helping, guiding, mentoring. And, if I wasn't going into coaching, that was something that I really wanted to do. And, Shoot 360, the franchise, kind of gave me the opportunity to really, do two things I love, right? It helped me, you know, start a business, with my wife, who has taken over it now since I've been on the coaching staff. And then it also helped me, get back in the community, get back engaging with young people's lives to help them grow, give them confidence, create a safe place, safe and positive place for them to come to and be at. And it was just, awesome. So, the city of Louisville's has been nothing but amazing, for it. They really have supported it, really, got behind it. And, I'm truly thankful, for them. And, it's still going strong, even if I'm not there. Our general manager, Dean Ballmer, and we have a lot of, staff members who work there, Luke Whitehead being one of them right now, former U of L player. And then we have a couple other, former players, athletes around the city of Louisville that are just there to help out and help build these kids up. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me is when parents come back and say, hey, these staff members at your facility really helped, whoever it may be out. And no, those are really big positive things for me that I can really hang my hat on at night.
And that's definitely respectable. And I think that it's, from talking with Jeremy, who is a close friend of both of ours, Jeremy Wallman, he's up there all the time. And he raves about, the opportunities that are there. I do want to sort of transition a little bit more to some of the basketball side of things. It's early, it's June, but there are some questions that I had that I'd like to get answered. I'll answer those. I'll ask you those here coming up here shortly after we tell you about our friends over at Gametime. Really quickly, today's episode of the show brought to you by Gametime. Look, NBA Finals might be getting close to getting over, but no better place to get all your athletic tickets, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. with Gametime. All-in pricing, views from your seat, the lowest price guarantees, so many different reasons to go to Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets and all other sports tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Continuing on along on this special episode, shout out to Peyton Siva for joining. Again, I will continue to preface this by saying 2013 national champion. It happened. We know this. But Peyton, this team, it's 13 new players. And I know that 2 of them will be medically redshirting, so technically 11. There will obviously be growing pains with a new roster, with half of a new team, especially with the whole team. But when I look at this roster top to bottom, it feels like the skill sets cohesively sort of mesh together. And there's a lot of similar traits and similar skills with this team. I wonder, what are some of the things that you as the coaching staff and the administration look at for potential players? Because having to fill out a roster so quickly and having so many spots to fill, it seems like you can kind of get overwhelmed. But it looks like there was a blueprint to the madness of the type of player that you're wanting to bring in.
I would just start off by saying that one of the best things that Coach and that I've learned in watching it that he's done is bringing his whole staff over with him from College of Charleston, the majority of them, just because they know what he wants. He knows them all. He doesn't have to sit around and teach them all new things, right? And this staff has been nothing short of amazing. Um, getting things done, quick turnaround, and it's, as Coach would say, it's the power of the unit. 25 strong. Everybody has a role, and those guys live and breathe it. Um, so they had the blueprint, like you said. It was a
Right.
collective effort. The hours of film that they've watched, the hours of calling, checking people's backgrounds. How is this person going to fit? Are they going to fit into Coach Kelsey's system? Are they going to fit
Mm-hmm.
maturity wise? And I mean, they knew what they wanted and they went after it,
Right.
right? And that's just a testament to their work and why they've been successful at the places that they've been. And it was just truly amazing for me to see now being on that staff and just seeing how it all goes to work, right? All the calls, the text, everything that goes into it, the visits, everything. It was truly eye opening for me because as a player, you don't really, know what goes into it behind the curtains. But actually seeing it, man, these guys are one of a kind, and it was really cool to see firsthand. But they they knew
Mm-hmm.
what they wanted. They knew the style that Coach Kelsey wanted to run, and they got the players right. These guys who have come in, all great guys, character guys, super talented, super skilled, fit Coach Kelsey's mold, style, and it's just about getting them to mesh, right? Getting them to know
Mm-hmm.
each one another, getting them to know Coach Kelsey's system. But it's coming along slowly but surely, but step by step, and that's why you have the summer to kind of figure it out.
100%. And I do wonder, like I mentioned, growing pains are going to happen with any new team, especially with a brand new team. And I understand there's a lot of individual talent, there's a lot of veteran leadership, but Chucky Hepburn in specific, like I drew almost some comparisons to sort of your role in a little bit of kind of being that leader, the guy that's played a ton of college basketball. I mean, you can't discount over 100 games started in the Big Ten. And what he brings on the court is fantastic, but having such a veteran point guard to sort of calm the ship when waters get choppy early on in the season, that has to be something fairly valuable, no?
100%. Chucky is a huge component of our team. He's going to run the show, but I just feel like with Chucky, yeah, you have someone who's started those as many games, but he's just an overall good guy. When he came on his visit, I got a chance to talk to him. Just the importance of Louisville, Louisville
Right.
culture, the history of it, playing in the Yum Center, and I mean, you can just tell that he was very he was a student of the game. He knew about the history. He knew about the
Right.
guys before him, and he's embracing it. And you want a kind of guy that is going to buy into you know the culture around here, but man, watching this, these last couple weeks, man, he's just been, truly phenomenal on the course. Been leading by example. Tough nose defender, can score in a variety of different ways, and he's going to have to be an extension of the coach. All of our, point guards are extension of the coach. Him, Corin, or the Rain, whoever it may be that takes over those guard duties. They just got to, be the calming of the ship.
I'm glad you mentioned Corin, and I mentioned this in a space that you were in, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I really want to hear Peyton's thoughts on this. Geographically speaking, and maybe I'm looking too much into this, but you sort of see playing styles kind of translate over from where a guy's from. New York, you have that very, tough nose, hard nose, gritty basketball. But it feels like the Pacific Northwest. I've always wanted to know this. So maybe this is me from a genuinely curious standpoint. I mean, you talk about guys from the Pacific Northwest like Michael Porter Jr., Paulo Banchero, Jamal Crawford, Nate Robinson. I mean, the list goes on. It feels like there's a ton of emphasis just on the ability to create your own offense. And watching Corin play, like you get that stingy defense. So I guess my question is, am I making too much into that, or how's basketball taught up in from where you're from? Because obviously you're from that area. What's the emphasis on there?
I mean, the West Coast and period has kind of always been a flashy style of
Yeah,
basketball, but we have a lot of good hoopers, right? In Seattle, there's a brotherhood of guys. I feel like it started with Jamal and Jason Terry of guys just coming back. I mean, Doug Christie was kind of the patriarch, if you would say, but those are Jamal and Jason Terry, like you said, Nate Robinson, Aaron Brooks, all those guys were the ones that really came back around, worked out with us, kind of showed us the rope. And, the style of play, man, is just really just up tempo, right? Get out and go. And what Corin does so well is he's able to create his own shot. He's the kind of guy
right.
you say, hey, go get us a bucket. But he's also, too, a really underrated passer. Had around like a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Shot the ball extremely well last year at Washington, and we're very lucky to have him on the team. I mean, I'm excited to have another Seattle guy on the team. Talk a little bit West Coast, but he's just a extremely talented player. He's only a junior, and we're excited to have him.
Does it rain as much as they say it does up there?
It rains more in Louisville than it does in
Really?
Seattle. It rains harder, and that's why I tell everybody,
That's fair.
living in Louisville, living in Seattle, it rains a lot harder here in Louisville. Like you can go outside and get drenched here in Louisville. In Seattle, it's kind of like annoying. It's gray. You're kind of just like you can walk outside without an umbrella and just get
Yeah.
through it. Here, you're like getting soaked. So it's just kind of like the gift and
Right.
curse, but it's super beautiful in the summer. Seattle is, but also too Louisville. I mean, we have a beautiful day today.
It's
Um,
about time,
you
man.
know, yeah, great weather, great golfing weather, baby. But it's really nice.
I it seems like one of the things that everyone wants to know are roster combinations, and knowing that Pat Kelsey's system is very up tempo, one of the fastest pace of play in the country since he got to Charleston, even back to the Winthrop days. I think what a lot of people want to know is how does that kind of work when you have as many players as you do that at least a lot of fans feel like, well, how do you keep this guy off the court? How do you keep that guy off the court? How do you keep this guy off the court? When you sub a lot like that, how do you make sure that you keep guys in a rhythm? What does that look like in terms of, minutes distribution and such?
Just speaking from my own personal experience, it's not as hard as you would think. When I went to Europe, the biggest thing for us was you're going to play 20, 25 minutes and you have to be efficient when you go out there, right? You go out
Mhm.
there, you're very efficient in what you do, you come out. You play those 20, 25 minutes as hard as you can, you leave everything out there, boom. And that's why you have a deep roster. And with those decisions, that's why I'm happy I'm not the head coach because that's all on Coach Kelsey. But no, it's one of those things that us as a staff just have to just kind of really see. All right, who's playing well, who's in the rhythm with Coach Kelsey's style. It's quick, fast pace, ask for a sub, get the next guy in, right? And with the roster this year, you have it, and they built it this way. We built it. I always say they, but we built this way. I'm part of the staff also too now. But we built it this way so we can have those guys that can come in and not miss a beat, right? You don't need the guys to play, 38, 37 minutes. Next guy comes in, gives you the same, productivity. And that's the beauty of, Coach Kelsey's system, right? Everybody always talks about playing positionless basketball. Um, and, Coach Kelsey really, exudes that, just let's get it out and go, play to your strengths, you know, push it up, get your shot up, good shots. And he really teaches that and preaches that. And, I'm really looking forward to, seeing how it all comes together.
Last one before we kind of get into the composure side of things on the that leads me into the glory days, so to speak. Last question I have is sort of about what we're going to expect from Pat Kelsey's style, because it seems like from all accounts this is going to be something that you might have seen some of it in the Rick Pitino days in terms of transition, but in terms of pace of play, it seems like it's going to be so different than what fans are used to, almost kind of like a pseudo-European style where there's a ton of ball movement, a ton of screens, a lot of backdoor screens. What can you kind of tell us or shed light on about, sort of what the identity that the coaching staff is trying to put on the team? I know that it changes with the personnel you have, but with this sort of personnel, what can you kind of envision that looking like?
I don't know. It's kind of weird, right? If you kind of compare it to, Coach Pitino, you kind of just say how we used to fly around on defense, full court, just running around, looks like we're running around with our head cut off, but it was kind of controlled chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the way Coach Kelsey's system is for offense, right? These guys are going to get out and go. Run, run, run. A lot of shots, a lot of threes, a lot of paint touches to the rim. And I think it's going to be a night and day difference basketball than we saw in the last couple years, just because the style is going to be so much different, right?
Sure.
I honestly feel like we're going to be one of the highest 3-point shooting teams in the ACC, just from the style of play. But we have the players who can do it, right?
Right.
You have your Kaysen, you have your Noah, Fat. Everybody, you just surrounded Rain. You're surrounded by shooters out there who can fill it up quick.
Right.
And then, he teaches us make that ball hop, move, 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 move. Right, get your teammate open shot. Just little things like that you hear kind of. You always hear it. It's kind of cliche, but he preaches it, means it, and they actually work on it, and it's actually, like I always say, it's just really refreshing to kind of see it, execute it on the court. And the guys enjoy playing that way, right? It's one of those things that, I mean, for example, Rain Smith made over 100 threes last year. I think in my 4 years playing, I shot 100 threes. Like, it's just like one of those things. I mean, just the style of play. And I feel like we play really fast.
Man.
On our team, but it's a different style of basketball, right? You just get it and go, let it fly, and it's a fun style. The guys enjoy it, and they put the work in to be able to enjoy it. So,
yeah, no, of course. It's great that you have that insight, because I think a lot of Louisville fans would definitely appreciate what you're saying here. But I'd be remiss if we didn't go a little bit down the rabbit hole. Let's take a little bit of a stroll back to memory lane. We'll do that here coming up in the next segment. And continuing along in the final segment with 2013 National Champion Peyton Siva. Wow, what a way to segue into it. Man, I'll be honest with you. I was a freshman in high school when you all cut down the nets. The 2013 team will forever be my favorite team. Like, when you all went down to Michigan, I was heartbroken, because I'm like, do not let it end this way. But it sort of epitomized the way that you all handled adversity. One of the things that I loved about that team, and that doesn't really get mentioned too much, is that you all seemingly never got too high, never got too low. Very veteran-led group. You dealt with adversity all year, from Gorgie going out early on to Kevin wearing the Elite Eight, and then double-digit deficits in both of the Final Four games. I guess I'd like to know, what was kind of the main ingredients behind the team, facing so much adversity. And it seemed like you all just were never rattled, always bounced back.
I would just say it was just the maturity of everybody. The year before, losing in the last game, making it that deep of run in the tournament, and then the majority of the guys coming back. I felt like we were battle tested. Felt like we've been through it. We never stressed if we were down in the first half because we felt like first half was just kind of to wear them down, and the second half is kind of where we made our runs. And so even in playing against Michigan and being down double digits, we know we never really wavered just because we were down double digits to Syracuse in the Big East title. So it was one of those things that we've been there before. We practiced those situations. We repped them out, and we felt confident in each other that we had each other's back and we can push through it. So those are some of the things that just kind of went through our minds, went through my mind, and we had the guys who were mentally tough enough. You see it a lot of times nowadays. We call them front runners, right? We weren't those. We were guys who, no matter if we were up or down, we're going to try to push it as hard as we can and play and leave it all out there in the court. So that's one of the things that we're trying to instill in these guys today, and just kind of just be that voice and to reiterate that.
Nobody wanted to play at Louisville. I mean, it seemed like, you all had guys, sitting in timeout, you and Russ both, and in the team in general. I'm interested in these next couple questions. They're very short in nature. What was who can you kind of pinpoint it as sort of the toughest individual matchup for you? Going back in the memory bank, who's a couple players that you're like, damn, man, he's tough to guard? There's a plentiful amount, but if you could pick a couple.
In college?
In college.
Ooh, I would say, Trey was, really difficult, just because he can shoot it. He was strong. He was very crafty. Another one that really goes unnoticed is Vincent Cancel at Providence. He was another strong, big guard, super fast. He would break our press by himself. We just had we played against a lot of tough guards. Carter Williams, he just saw all over me and Russ a lot of times, especially in the half court where we couldn't really get underneath him. Um, Jordan Theodore, who was at Seton Hall when we played. Obviously you have your guys like, Shabazz Napier and Kemba Walker, you know,
Mm-hmm.
two extremely tough guards to play against. So those were, really tough guys that, we had problems with. Brandon Knight, his year when he played, we just, they were really elite guys that kind of gave us fits that, we couldn't really speed them up, couldn't really tire them down. And, it took a team effort against most of them. So.
What place did you dread playing at the most? There was a couple of them that, like, I always remembered. If we went to play in Morgantown against West Virginia, I was like, oh man, here we go with these fans. Rupp Arena.
I
Even
would
the Carrier
say,
Dome.
yeah, I would say Syracuse was a big one for me. Just their style of play, their length, and then the dome is just just a really tough place to play at, just because the depth perception of everything. That was always a hard one to play at. Um, you know, West Virginia, was a fun one. Pittsburgh was tough. They had the little bottom um, bowl was their fan section, if I remember correctly, and they would get after it. Those are some fun ones as far as the Big East goes. That you kind of just like, all right, yeah. Oh, Notre Dame too is just Notre Dame, just because they were like the nicest people, and but they just would like just cheer on the sideline. It was just like annoy the heck out of you. But that little leprechaun would be dancing after every three they hit, and it was just it just kind of got to you.
Hey, man, I imagine Kyle Kirk took it personal on that one dunk. I imagine he said, "You know what, man? Enough of this, man. We're gonna go ahead and quiet things down." Last question I got for you. I need doesn't obviously that you can't tell a lot of things, but I need a Coach P story. I need a funny or wild Coach Pitino story that you look back on it and makes you laugh.
I say this one just because the most recent one that comes to mind is there was a video that came out not too long ago of a highlight reel of me, and one play in particular that really stood out, and I get a lot of mess for it, was we played DePaul. Got a steal, and Kevin Ware is running on the left side of the wing, and I go in and I try to do a 360 dunk. Uh,
I
I slip.
remember this.
Yeah, I slip,
Oh,
and it ends up turning into a kind of an awkward layup. Luckily, I make the layup, but Coach P called me the most selfish player he's ever coached against. That was the ugliest move he's ever seen, and why wouldn't I pass it up to Kevin Ware and sign you? He just that was really one time where
man.
he really ripped him to me, and he was just like, "You're the most selfish player I've ever played against, like coached with," and all this other stuff. And it was super funny. I mean, we were up by, I want to say, like 20 or something, but it was one of those moments where it's like I deserved it, right? Some of the things you do, you kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, what I didn't do, but I deserved all of it, especially because Kevin Ware was ahead of the break, and I was like, we're up by 20. All right, let me go do this, and
Why not, man?
yeah, it was just karma.
Was that
Karma
the year?
got me right away.
Was that the year? Was it at DePaul?
Yeah,
Was that
it was
at the
at
year where
DePaul.
Shane had that dunk
Yep, it
that got
was.
called back for the offensive foul?
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly the game we're talking about. But
Yeah.
this is Peyton Siva, my man. I appreciate you coming on. Best of luck this season. I'm sure we'll talk at some point before the year, man. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. That's going to wrap up this Thursday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here